Hey everybody, my name is Edgar, and I'd like to welcome all of you to another episode of Diffusing the WMSCOG. And what can I say about today? Man, am I excited? I feel like I say that in every video, but it's like the Avengers up here. So yeah, I'm just gonna give them everybody, just a chance to introduce yourself. We'll start it off with Jenny.
Hi, I'm Ginny, and I'm a former member of 7 years from Cheyenne, Wyoming, Zion.
I'm Marissa. I was also a former member of Cheyenne Zion for 10 years, and I had two children with me.
I'm
I'm
a
Dallas. I'm
oh
sorry,
go
I'm
ahead.
Dallas. I was a 3-year, almost 4-year member of the Belleville Zion in New Jersey, and I had two teenage boys with
I'm Amy and I'm from the Colorado Springs Zion. I was a former member of 9.5 years and I had four children with me.
Hi, my name's Daisy, and I'm a former member, and I was in Zion for 13 years, and I have two kids in Zion.
Am I the last one?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Milolo. I am a 12-year former member of the World Mission Society Church of God, and I was a kids room teacher.
Cool. All right, so let's get things started. I know last time we kind of left off and very emotional episode, and I feel like that's just gonna come with the territory, especially in this video because it's related about children, and I think children are the ones who are affected the most in this cult. Obviously we are all affected, but the children, they're the ones who don't deserve, like none of us deserve it, but it, we all have to have a soft spot for, if even if we don't have children, the children itself. It's so horrible because they're just raising a new wave, you know what I mean, of people that are gonna be stressed out. And I was thinking about that today. Maybe we'll start off with this, like all the interviews that I've done, all the interviews that all the other channels have done, I've seen members say, I've had such a, hard time when I was in, and I left with anxiety. I left like I wasn't, felt like I wasn't good enough, and I always had the fear of hell, and I was scared to, say anything, to speak up. I would suppress my emotions, and that had me thinking today when I was at work, and I was like, what about the children? The children hear the exact same thing as we do. How does that affect them, especially at a young age, right? When you're constantly being told, and you are being told, you're not good enough. You're not good enough for heaven. You're not good enough for father and mother. You're not good enough for anything. And so you're basically, you're teaching the children this at such a young age. When they grow up, when they're teenagers, you see it. That's why later on in life, like we were talking in the other episode, and it was crazy how it just came out so organic, how a lot of our children have to go to therapy. A lot, I can speak for in my case, like my son sometimes tells me, like, he had a struggle, not only fitting in but also like feeling good enough. You know what I mean? And it's like, where do you get that from? You know what I mean? And I know in my case, that's how I felt. We always were made to feel like we weren't anything. I just want people to think, members of the WMSCOG who are parents, how, if you feel that way, imagine how your child feels.
I think that includes everything.
Yeah.
I think that includes every our reason as adults to even do this, unless we felt that way, we could never
Mhm.
understand what our children went through.
Well, I saw it and heard it in my children. After every Saturday night when we would come home, uh, how they would say that this world didn't matter, that nothing mattered on this world, that, you know, basically they just had nothing good to look forward to. And my husband, who was never a member, would always ask us what and ask me, why are they coming home saying that this life doesn't matter, that it doesn't matter what you do here? Like, so I would notice that too, but as I was indoctrinated myself, it was just like you just store that in the back of your head and you don't really, because you're thinking yourself that really nothing does matter in this world. It's just, the church, your family there. So, but I definitely saw that right away with my kids and even myself. It's like you start to tell yourself that nothing really matters, not your job, nothing. So, but to hear it from my kids, yeah, it was definitely like my kids are actually saying this. So they definitely, it definitely also affected them.
Yeah, I feel like I can attest to that too because I remember one specific night my son was all tucked in bed and he's 10 now, but he probably was like 8, maybe 9. Um, and he had tears in his eyes and he was really upset like before bed and I asked him like what's wrong and he said he was scared and I thought he was like scared of something like in his room or something and he was like I'm scared that I'm not going to have enough faith when father comes. And me as an indoctrinated mom, uh, saw that as beautiful, unfortunately, because I'm like, wow, he actually cares about if he has enough oil of faith. And I remember like encouraging him and saying like, that's why, like we're preparing our faith and like let's pray. But looking back now, I'm like, wow, like a 9-year-old child is scared at night because he's so nervous whether he has enough faith to meet father or not. And
Yeah.
that breaks my heart now when back then I was like, oh, it made me sad, but I was like, oh, that's beautiful that he cares. And I'm like, it shouldn't be like this at all, actually.
Mm.
You should
Yeah.
actually be scared of a boogeyman or a monster, not that, you know, what normal kids are usually scared of, something that's in their closet or under their bed. No, they're scared that father's going to come and they're going to go to hell at 8 years old.
Hmm.
Yeah,
As
We
because it's like,
normalize
go
we
ahead.
normalize fear. We
Yes.
normalize fear.
A
Hmm.
fear-based control is what they lived under. Yes, and I'm here today like to speak out again, like Edgar expressed, not only for my own children, but for others that have entrusted me to share their truth and their stories, and for all that are still trapped in Zion, because this is a cult that has masked themselves to be the true church. Which behind it, there's a system that just like us, our children, even at a deeper level, are going through that manipulation, the abuse, the fear, control that has been put into them. So we're here to um, speak the word out and for protection because we don't want I don't want any more children to go under this. And I mean, I have a few stories I could share on point with that, but I'll let you guys um, continue if you'd like. I do have two stories that kind of go along with this, directly from children who are now adults, but at the time were between the ages of one being mine, between the ages of 8 and 17 years old, where it was the time frame that they were in Zion. Hmm. Um,
Go ahead, Jennifer.
okay. So one would be considered mm, also it would be considered psychological abuse. Looking at it from identity crisis, as you had mentioned before, the psychological abuse in this cult has been inflicted on the children. One, along with one other my age, like I had expressed, sharing firsthand accounts of these of emotional and spiritual trauma. So one story was that my oldest daughter, who is now 22, wanted me to share. Um, she was publicly rebuked by one of the kids' room teacher for simply before service, there was a mirror in front of the sanctuary, and she had her veil on, and she was told that she was idolizing herself, that she was nobody important. And this comment made a lasting wound on her and even her security level of moving forward. But there's another time where the indoctrination and isolation that she believed her only value came from bearing fruit. Like her only friends were inside the cult, and she was compelled to preach about God the Mother to the other, particularly two Bible study teachers that drilled the older girls really hard. And if they didn't convince them, they were just persecuted at such a young age. And we're told that nothing else matters, like not even school mattered. If they felt that so shameful that if they didn't bear fruit and they didn't go to school preaching about God the Mother, and bring other people in, that they were going to go to hell. And so that's what she did. She went to, my daughter was at school preaching about God the Mother, so she lost out on like the friendships that maybe she would have had had she not. And then another sister, her age, wanted me to share how she really wanted to join the choir, and has an amazing voice, and she was shamed about boasting about her voice when hitting a high-pitched note for singing. And so that was something that, like, the identity crisis that the two older children can relate to on this. Mhm.
So wild to me, and I bet you is probably they probably got rebuked because the teacher, whoever sings, probably sucks at singing, so they probably took it out on them. I mean, that happens all the time in the cult. You know, hey, we're airing them out, so I'm just calling it how I see it. And to Marissa's point, when she was talking about her child, right, and what are his thoughts? I mean, just listen to that. If you listen to it and you didn't feel any type of way, something is wrong. You're deeply lost in the sauce if it doesn't put you at a standstill, like, and you don't feel bad for this child. No child should be thinking like that. Like Odalis was saying, they should be scared of the boogeyman, of La Llorona, something, you know, along those lines, not God. This is the God of the World Mission Society. That's the God, the all-loving God, right? They want you to fear their God. See, their God only works if you fear him, right? And that this is 100% the wrong reason why anyone should follow God, is not out of fear. That's the last reason you should follow God, right? But this is how this cult thrives. They thrive off of fear. And to hear Marissa say what she said about how, you know, as an indoctrinated parent, how she felt that it was, you know, okay, I can relate to that. And that makes me feel cringe to myself, because I remember scaring my own son with the fear of hell. I remember telling him, I remember showing him the UCC space video myself about hell, right? And I take that upon myself. I did that, but I was influenced by the WMSCOG because I was worried about my son's salvation, right? And they told me, you don't want to end up like Eli and his sons, right? Eli and his son. What are the names? You guys remember the names?
Hananias and
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So Eli's sons, right?
um,
The two crazy kids that they love to bring up, right? Hophnies and Phineas
yeah,
or something like that, right?
yeah,
And
something like that.
Eli is their dad, who's a priest, right? Again, they take that completely out of context, but that's beside the point. They use that to basically say, look how they ended up. They died, right? They were killed for disobeying God, right? And that's what they teach your children, right? That's what they teach the parents to teach their children. So I remember clearly telling my son that, and my son remembers. And I can't help but blame myself for how my son grew up and now all the things that he's going through. But again, I wouldn't have done those things if I wasn't pushed to do those things by the WMS, and you do these things because in a weird way, you think you're helping them. You think this is the way to love your child. And what you're actually doing is you're hurting them.
Mhm.
Yep.
Anybody
I
else got
think
a story?
I think like I just really want to say I'm sorry, Jenny, for what you went through, because um not just you, but you and your family, and I'm really excited that you guys are out, and it's good that the girls, especially at this age, I think that's really important because there's a difference between men and female, and what they say to us. Um, and so when they say something that impacts us as a human, as women, um, we don't have as much I want to say there are ones, but we don't have as much self-confidence. It takes work
Sensitive.
for us. Yeah, we're sensitive. That's a good way to put it. So, um, when somebody says something like that to us, especially in an environment like that, I feel like hearing that at school is one thing, but hearing that in an environment where you're constantly thinking like who you are, what you're doing, how you act, your thoughts, the way you look, the way you eat. There's like multiple levels that they put on to stress you out. So in an environment like that, when they put that on you, I feel like it's not okay because that means that these teenage boys and girls, I'm specifically speaking for a girl because I know that, but you're it's not okay for them to to do that, to put somebody down. Um, I think that the goal should be to raise up, right? Like what they say, but they're not raising up. They're raising up like fear tactics, like, oh, who's the scaredest? But they're not raising up like, I feel confident in who I am. I feel confident in what God has given me. I feel confident that, what I have. I don't feel like it's excusable for an organization to to shame young people into thinking that unless they join this organization and believe this, that their life is going to fail. I
Yeah.
think that they need to disconnect that because when they disconnect that, they're going to have I don't wish anything. I'm sorry. I don't mean I don't mean any. Sorry, I mean, I don't mean the WMSCOG to fail, but in a way, I kind of wish they don't really change these things. But if they did that, it would literally allow their members to strive. That's like a common humanity practice. Like that's how teachers allow their students to strive. You have to find what is adequate in the best trait in each individual. But I feel like this organization is the opposite. They're like, I'm going to find your worst trait and I'm going to let you think about that and work on that. And that is absolutely incorrect, you know? So,
Yeah, or like me Lolo mentioned, like how in the last episode kids were called ugly to not get a big head. It's like, oh, this is your best trait, but let me not give you a big head about it and say something sideways to you. Like these are adolescent kids. Like why are full-grown adults talking like this to adolescent people when they look up to you?
And why do they feel that they have the right to? Where does
Mhm.
that come from?
Mhm.
Who, where do they get off in saying that? Because they don't become teachers of students by themselves. Someone has to put them in charge, right? The church leader. So this mentality comes from the chain of command. So this is what they want to teach your children. And those are great points what Amy said and what Marissa said about, you know, the stories that Jenny mentioned, because it's true. You're supposed to build the children up, especially the children, at least the children. They won't even do that. They'll take their best traits and make it to where they feel bad about having those things, right? And I mean, I can't view it from a, you know, a women point of view, but I get it, and and it makes sense, you know, what Jenny says, and it's horrible. It's horrible because that's literally what they do. They do that with brothers too. If a brother has, you know, little brother has any type of skill, you know what I mean, singing, whatever it might be, instead of cultivating that, they just make you feel guilty for it. Go ahead,
Mhm.
Odalis.
I can definitely elaborate on that with my younger one. He was very excited in the beginning to go and everything, and it's crazy. So the younger one who was excited to go in the very beginning, he had the hardest time. None of the boys his age would talk to him. They would basically ignore him, call him names. And I hate this till this day that I didn't step in because I was also being led by my branch. My branch was, you know, because I would always go to her. She was a friend before the church. And every time I would tell her, like, look, why are they treating him this way? She said that that's part of his sin, that he has to build his own faith. I get angry. But to his talent. So at one point, like my son basically taught himself how to DJ, how to play the keyboard, and he would remix the new songs with like the techno, because that's his thing. Like I don't know if you guys know Dead Mouse or anything like that. That's his thing. And when I was excited about it, I was like, this is great because you can get the younger kids, like kids your age, to, you know, listen to the songs that are a little more different. They're not like the, you know, we all know how new songs are. So when I took it to my group leader, she said that we aren't allowed to remix or to change. I mean, he wasn't even changing it, honestly. He was just adding a different beat to make it more for the youth. We were told that he couldn't do that. So, yeah. I even asked one time because he was very excited about the piano. And you know, I know in the big church, like I was in one of the bigger churches, the what's her name? The pastor's wife, the Kwanzaa, she would be the one to do the piano, and he was excited about that too. And he's like, "Oh, maybe one day I could do that." And you know, because I always saw that it was the females doing it, I just asked her one day. I was like, "Oh, do you think that maybe a brother could play the piano? You know, my son, he's really good." She's like, "Oh, um." That's not something you need to worry about right now. And it wasn't like I wanted him to immediately get put on the piano. It was just a question because that's something that interests my son and, you know, was something to get him more involved in the church. And so, yeah, that's definitely one thing with him. Like, he was so excited about it. Ugh, he was just, from the beginning, it was just really hard with him. And then the other one, the older one, who didn't want to go in the beginning, they almost took my baby. Like he was really, really in. And even when I told them that I had found out that it was, you know, it wasn't a real church, that it was a cult, he said he had to keep going, that he was going to go because where else could he keep the feast of God? So it was like complete opposites with them. With Jay, I mean, I've said his name before. With Jagan, the older one, they really got in his head. And I was very, very scared that he was going to continue to go. without me or his brother. So yeah, it's very scary how it works with one, you know, they're beating him down, and then the other one, he got moved to the young adults. He was um with his own group. He was sitting, yeah, he
Mhm.
wasn't sitting downstairs with so the kids in that church, they would sit in the fellowship for services, so it would be downstairs, and then the adults would be upstairs, males, females. So he was upstairs already, so they were like lifting him up, while the other one, they were treating him like garbage. So
I,
I,
yeah.
go ahead, Amy.
I'm glad that I'm really, really glad that she mentioned that because I think one of the topics that I really wanted to mention is about the separation of parents and
Oh yeah.
children. And it's so hard because there's members I know that are still in and they speak to me and they're like mentally out, but they're not leaving because their children are in. And I really want to just squeeze them and tell them like, please, like I get it, you're trying to, but you're like I get it, it's such a difficult situation, but I mentioned this in my last episode, and I used a word. I'm gonna use it again. I think it's grooming. I think when you separate the parents, especially from the young adults, like teenagers, you're allowing, and I participated, so just not to like separate myself from any parents because I allowed this as well, but we allow our children to be told by the teacher. And there are times when the teacher is going to come to the parent and say, hey, your child was like this and this, right? And we're accepting that as a parent in the church and thinking that they're the child's
Guide.
um yes, guide is going to
Mhm.
tell them like what's right, and that's not. So we literally give up
Our
our
parental
parental.
rights, yeah. We
Mhm.
give our parental instincts to want to intervene, to want to, say, go to whoever's in charge of the group and say, listen, what's going on? It's like you're told that your children have to build their own faith. That happened with me immediately. After when I first started going, I would study with both of them. And little by little, it's like, well, they need to go with the kids. They need to build on their own faith. You need to build on yours. It's like, and I'm very close with my boys. I always, I'm very protective of them. So it's like if something like that would happen in school, immediately I'm the first one emailing, calling, like, what's going on? Why is my kid being bullied? Whatever, in that place, they are taking that away from you. They're basically saying, no, that's not your place here. Here, the ones who are in charge are the teachers or the leaders or father and mother. So you need to let them basically build on that. But it's completely messed up. It really is.
And I don't know if it was like this in every Zion, but like, did it get to the point for you guys where it was like, don't even come see your kids in between service because you're making it distracting and you're making it like they want to go with their parents, right? But
Well,
like,
yeah, I was in
so
kids' room, and
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
I
that
So
made a
like,
happened a
don't
lot.
sign.
Like, yeah,
I
they would
don't
printed a
come see your
sign.
kids.
discourage.
I made
Yeah,
a Google word sign. I was told and instructed.
yeah,
I made
hmm,
it
Yeah.
on Word. You are
yeah,
not a mom in Zion. You are not a parent in Zion. I wrote it. I printed it. I laminated it. I put it on the doors. It was on every kid's room. It was understood. That was understood.
yeah. I was
Hmm.
a kids' room teacher as well, and the teachers spent more time with their kids than the parents. I
I,
spent more time with them than the actual parents. The only time a parent would
Hmm.
come is if depending on, so when I was with the babies, they always had to have their milk and all that or whatever they would eat. But let's say the from ages, I think 5 to 7, like preschool, if the girl or the boy didn't have lunch, the parent would have to go pick something up in between services to give them lunch because lunch wasn't given to the babies or to the 5 and through 7. The only ones that would get lunch are the kids 7 through 12 and then the teenagers. So they would have to, and that's the only time the kid would see their parent is, and literally it's like here's their lunch, and then they would go do whatever, preach, I don't know, study the sermons, whatever. So it's like, yeah. And even after that, even after services is over, I know that in the Zion I was in, um, the kids room would stay open till 10. So let's say if the service end by 8:30, you have till 10. So that means you have an hour and a half to do sermon, to preach, to something, because they literally, those kids are in there from 8, maybe 8:15, 8:30. So past sometimes 10:30. I know back then it was longer from what I was told, but I know that when I started going, kids room was open till 10 p.m. and it was open every day. So even Monday through Friday, Sundays, because was always preaching, whatever, where they would all go and preach, whatever. But Monday through Friday, the kids' room was open after work, so parents could go preach or whatever it is. So literally, these kids were spending most of their time in this place with, not with their parents, with us. Go ahead. I'm
Jenny.
sorry.
And I'd like to note on that, in the beginning, and I shared in my personal video, that was one of the red flags because I had twins when I first came in, were babies. And I didn't want to leave my babies ever. And so, and I was really actually really slow. Like I was given spiritual milk for a really long time. I didn't even get in deep for a while. But then we were in a house church. And so you guys in the bigger Zions at that time had adults watching them, where in our Zion at times, not Sabbath days, but other days of preaching, it was the older girls, our older girls that were watching these kids
Teenage girls.
and teenage
Mm-hmm.
girls. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot. And I'm thankful that I was only faithful, even though 100% within those 7 years, I can't say I was all in. I was still in, but I was never all in because I was always that mom that, my kids come first, and there's a lot of stories behind that and why and my reasoning why. But I do want to share that my first like huge red flag, which I bypassed, was the you need to leave the kids. You need to leave the kids. You need to grow. It's time to leave the kids. Once a deacon, a Korean deacon had came in, it was very pushy, like very more controlling. But then there was also a car accident that I was involved in that I felt that I had to give myself to God. Like we should be dead. We were on a highway going 75 miles an hour, and all of us lived through the van flipping, and it was like our angel saved us. And that was like the love bombing moment where, we were, you know, my family was chosen, like we were chosen. And didn't last for throughout the rest of my time there either. But my story comes from my younger daughter, who was older at the time, but still in the house church at Zion. And this would go in a category of discipline, and also something that cannot be shared to say that it came from, because it was West Coast versus East Coast. The story of, oh, us West Coast members under Daniel Pasture Park weren't taught from General Assembly. It cannot, because my story lines up with Amy's, who is clear from, after watching the first video, from the East Coast. It goes in the line of discipline. Um, And I didn't realize. Had no clue at the time. And my older daughter, the older two separated from the younger two because there was only two age group classrooms for ours in this church. Um, so I was told that like multiple times sister would come up and with my daughter, she didn't eat all her food. And I was like, like, okay, that's fine. Like for me, I've always been a heavy set, and I used to be a 330-pound woman at one point in my life. So I never forced my children to eat all their food. However, I did have that rule, well, you just are not going to get dessert. So two stories behind that. And I didn't even know that it would not, when they didn't eat all their food, they were disciplined in the fact where the other children would get to go to the park right down the street. Mine wouldn't get to go because she didn't eat all her food and her food would sit in front of her. But moreover, the one that aligns up with Amy's, as far as discipline and the trauma that she was able to express to me, when and her words, quote unquote, was I hate that church, and what they did to her. She said that she'll never forget the day she ate all her food, and she was so excited, but there was like one tiny little Brussels sprout left on her plate. And so she was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get dessert." And she was so happy that she ate all her food. And sister would she's told her, well, you have to eat the rest of that Brussels sprout. And so she tried, she did, but she ended up throwing it up. Like it was so disgusting and nasty to her. And on more than one occasion, because she wouldn't eat all her food, she was taken into the laundry room. The kids' room was in the basement, a dark, dark basement. And the laundry room was extremely dark. And my twins were taken into a laundry room and locked in a closet for not eating all their food. They were shut in a closet with no light because they wouldn't eat all their food.
And it's messed up. I remember Jenny, your oldest, was in a separate room, so she couldn't even vouch for the twins and that like happening to them.
And so I would like to share too that it's not everyone in there was like, one, it's an instruction given. They're entrusted by God, but not every teacher either like maybe followed all that. I don't know, but I can say 100% too that was a teacher in there at the same time that I would entrust to this day to send my kids across the United States to be with and have no worry or problem in my heart. But that did occur in that room with my children. And then wall sits, a lot of long, extensive wall sits that they would go through, like how far, like, psychologically, a brain under at the age of 7 and under, like how long should you be in time and in a timeout? You know, like back to the what Amy had expressed before, like if it's not healthy, it has to be healthy and regulated. If it's not, then like this is the whole point of bringing all this up on the behalf of the children that have been in there or but also still in there. Like we want to make sure that any form of discipline or anything that these children are going through is healthy. Like the World Mission Society Church of God has cultivated to everything. Like they've changed so many things to adapt to time. It's time to adapt to a healthy environment for the children. Like, mhm.
I I
Please.
I can say something as far as being a teacher. Um it is definitely coming from, I guess, the, I don't know, leaders. But when, for example, when I was in baby's room, They were treated like they were nothing. And I'm guilty, like Amy, of being tough on literally a 3-year-old baby girl because she wouldn't keep her veil on. And of course, it's spiritual. It's spiritual. She didn't want the veil on her head. I got aggressive with her. And that night I came home crying. I felt horrible. And I told myself after that day that I was not going to treat them that way. And every parent loved me because I was always on top of the kids. I didn't care if they weren't allowed to have milk during services, if they weren't allowed to sleep. I would let them sleep. If they wanted a bottle, they would get a bottle. To me, it was more important that they were happy and healthy than they have to be awake. They can't be crying. I remember one day when baby girl wouldn't stop crying. She was tired. She was baby. I put her on my lap. She fell asleep, and then I put her on her seat. And the main teacher turned around and said, "You can't do that." And in my head, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna continue to do that. I and I know for a fact that it's because of that that they never put me back with the babies, because I actually fell in love with those babies and I took care of them as my own. And I don't know who, I can't say names, but I know that because I was continuously put in the kids' room, I was on rotation, but I was only put there once because they knew that I actually loved these kids and I was treating them like what they were, babies. They just want love. They need, what do babies do? They want to eat, sleep, right? And play. And they weren't allowed to do any of that. Even the older kids, they weren't allowed to go see our church. We have like our that church or organization has a nice yard with big trees. They weren't even allowed to go out because they were too loud and yelling when they went out to play. These are kids, that's what they're supposed to do. So at one point, the Kwanzaa said that the kids weren't even allowed to go outside. So these kids were literally in this tiny house for hours on end. And don't even get me started on feast weeks with the babies and with the children. So it's yeah, Jenny, I feel for you and I'm so sorry that happened to your kids. But I just wanted to tell you personally, I would have never allowed that to happen. I wouldn't. I didn't
Yeah.
care. To me, kids, they're kids and you cannot. I just can't. So that's why I know that they took me out of there because they knew that I was actually treating them like kids. They're
Mhm.
allowed to have tantrums. They're allowed to be tired. They're allowed to fall asleep. They're there from 8 o'clock in the morning to 10, 11 o'clock at night. So yeah, I'm really sorry that happened to your children.
Thank you. And yeah, I wasn't allowed to be with the children either because of
Mhm.
that very reason. Like, I know they did try to have a structure of nap time, but mine won't go to sleep unless one particular he literally if you unless his back was rubbed. And so then I was that mom where I wanted him next to me so he can down and take a nap during service type mom. And then came to that. They're not allowed to be with you. You need to go in the
Mhm.
front. You need to be in the front so you can focus. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I had a baby girl, the same baby girl with the veil. She hated, she would never nap. And by the maybe the third service, she would be so exhausted, and all she would do was cry. And I'd pick her up and I'd put her on my lap, and she would calm down. And I would get looks, and I honestly did not care. When it came to the kids and especially the babies, I didn't care. If you wanted to rebuke me, go ahead, because I get again, this is why they took me out of there because they knew I wasn't following their rules.
I
Yeah.
just
So.
I want to say something real quick. So listening to Jenny's story, it's obviously heartbreaking, and it honestly, if it makes your blood boil because this is not a parent disciplining their child. This is someone else that's not related doing this to your child. And parents are just, you're like Amy said, you're literally told you're not their parent in Zion. You can step in everywhere else except Zion, right? And so this kind of behavior is just allowed. And to Odali's point, I know Odali, she's such a good person, but she did that despite the cult. That's not the norm. That's not the
Mm-hmm.
norm. And
Mm-hmm.
I want to highlight this because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not blaming all the teachers of the kids room. They
Right.
do have their fault because they also were brainwashed. But this
Hmm.
goes above that. Where where do they get that mindset to do these
Hmm.
things if not from the leadership? It's a chain of
Yes.
commands. I was also a
Hmm.
student group teacher of the like high schoolers, the what would you call it, the young adult group. And I
Hmm.
remember teaching that, the thing is, what you guys are bringing up just brought memories because it was kind of a blur because it was in the beginning of my time there. But I remember studying with them, after second service, and all the way to after third service, we would study the same exact sermon book that the adults were learning. And
Yes.
just to go back to what Odalis was talking about earlier, and what Jenny was talking um about the difference in like the in the children. Why is it that a child that's younger, in your case, I'm gonna use your example with Dolly's, your youngest, he was kind of broken down, right?
He was.
Pushed down. And your oldest, he was kind of like being built up. But why is that? There's a system at play during that. And the system is when they're young, right? When they need to be, like Amy mentioned, groomed, they need to be broken down. That's a common cult tactic. This is what cults do, not only to children but also to adults. They need to first break you down completely in order to start building you up the way they want you to be. And at that, you lose everything. You're not yourself anymore. You lose it all. You lose your personality. And that's when you adopt your cult personality. If we as adults accepted the cult personality and we as adults were groomed, how much more easy is it to do it to a child?
Mm-hmm.
That's not correct. That's not right. And what Jenny said, like that really, what like the treatment of the children, what they did, that's unacceptable. But I think the leadership needs to be held accountable for those things, because I'll say it again, they boast to say they have the true church and that they have the true God. This is how God would treat their children. This is how God treats their children. In the Bible, when I read the Bible, I see Jesus say, "Let the children come to me. The kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these." And then you have these people locking children up, right? In closets, right? Scaring them with the fear of hell, right? Making them feel the way that they do, where they feel that they're not good enough. Any good thing that they have, instead of building them up, they tear them down. That's the love
Mm-hmm.
of God. That's just not
And they
right.
always
No, and
go ahead.
oh,
Sorry.
sorry. Uh,
No, no, go
so
ahead.
like you were expressing, Edgar, they had put my oldest as well. One of her stories was putting them in a room. They would make them sit them in a room by themselves with all the lights off and watch Passion of the Christ. And then afterwards, they would come in. And she said she was, I believe, 13 or 14 at the time. And then they would come in and, so what are you going to do? How do you feel about this? And then they would rebuke them to bring them, like you said, all the way down. And how are you going to make this up to God? Basically, is like how she felt like I'm 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 so horrible. I'm such a sinner. Now I have to do this, this, and that. They put the fear in her at that age. Yes, indeed.
Mhm.
Mm.
I wanted to add, I don't know how they did it in other Zions, but as far as Passion of the Christ, they would have kids from, I think, 10 and above watch that for Passover. And for Passover, you have to fast. And kids were fasting. And as a matter of fact, going by their, they must have caught on to someone saying about kids fasting, because when I first started, every age child had to fast for Passover except for infants. Then by the second year, it was ages 5 through 7, that's up to the parents. And then 10 and above fast. So it's like, I guess they caught on to that you're making children fast and then putting them to watch Passion of the Christ.
Yeah,
And I
people
actually,
persecuting.
yeah. And then
Yeah.
there was even an incident with one boy who I think was, I don't want to say, but his sugar went down because he was fasting. He was only, I think, 9 or 10. Sugar went all the way down, pale, almost passed out. The mom had to grab some sugar and put it in his mouth. No water, no food for kids when I first started, 7 and older. So yeah, and Passion of the Christ. That to me, like, I can't even watch that movie without turning my face in certain parts or really crying because come on. So it's, yeah. And they claim, this is one thing that I used to tell myself, like, this is so contradictory of them. They would try and compare Zangil Ja, our mother, to the love of a mother. But you're not letting us as mothers, as parents, treat our children with that same love. So
Yeah.
which one is it?
Mm-hmm.
And that
100%.
used to just drive me crazy. Like, I don't know if you guys saw this podcast, heard one of Tony and Lizzie's last podcast with Anthony. They did a whole campaign on mothers and children, and this guy applied because supposedly they were going to give him money. A single dad, they were going to give him money for college. So he went, and this was all just to get him to go to the church. That's, to me, so horrible. This guy is thinking, I'm a single dad, I finally got a chance, I'm going to get some money so I can go to college and take care of me and my child. Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just crazy, because
The
I
church
think
didn't
in
give
Man
anything. The church
no,
didn't give
I think
anything. They
in
never.
Manhattan, yeah, in
Mhm.
Manhattan they had a whole museum about showing mothers with their babies, and it's like, how hypocritical of you. You're showing a picture of something that you are not teaching. You are not teaching that, especially not to your children, especially not to the kids are looked as nuisances. Like, they don't want you to love. They don't want you to love your kids, your own
Yeah.
children. They don't.
Most
My
people, we
son
idolize
was,
them.
yes, was one of the last ones to get served every Saturday. And by the time they got to them, to the kids, there was nothing left, because, not, no offense to you, Edgar, but the brothers always got more than everybody. So one day he came to me. This is when I was working in kitchen, because I also did kitchen. That's a whole nother, you know, drama. But he said, Mom, I'm still hungry. I gave him my food, because isn't that what mothers do? Right? You're going to put your child's needs, your child's hunger before yours. Everybody gave me a look, and I was waiting for someone to say something to me, because by then I was also almost, I was checking myself out. So it's like,
Mhm.
say something to me. You're going to tell me that I can't give my son my food? Come on. That's not love. That's not true. A true parent is always going to think of their children before themselves. So I just wanted to put that out there, especially about the fasting. I know that last episode, because I saw that one, you didn't get to talk about fasting, and fasting was a huge thing for Passover for the kids. It was just, and even I remember my first Passover, they had this whole, um, I don't know, I don't even want to say, like, basically saying, if your kids are going to be disruptive, your babies, your kids, you gotta go. Babies are gonna cry. Kids are gonna fuss. And I remember one mom who had little, I think she was maybe a 2, 3 year old crying. She had to step out. She had to walk out on quote unquote Passover because her child was being disruptive. It's like they want robots. They want little or zombies that just sit there and do nothing, you know? So it's just it really has to stop. So if they are watching this and they are catching up and trying to keep up with the narrative, keep up with this narrative. Really. Don't do that to children. If you really want to show love, show actual love. And it starts with kids because kids are innocent. Kids are not born with malice. They, things like that, things that your kids, Jenny, go that they're going to carry that. They are. And I know what my son carries. My son goes to therapy. you know we have to, as an organization or whatever, a place of God, you need to think about that. They really need to think about that.
Yeah, I know that there was is in regards to fasting. Um,
Mhm.
so in the Denver Zion, there was only I'm 1 year that I made my children fast, and it was right the Passover after the car accident. And when I walked into the there at the Denver Zion, the children's room was separate. It was like in the eating area versus in the sanctuary at that time. So I'll never forget like walking in there and like this is new for me, like walking in there and just like all the babies crying, like way too many children, like maybe ages 3 to babies, that way too many for the amount of adults. But they didn't want me to stay in there. But anyhow, walking in there, and this is like my reasoning, like looking at all these children just crying and crying, and then another one had a bottle. Well, then the other there it was like, what's going on? Because one can have milk, but this one can't. Well, that's up the babies with the bottles. That's up to the parents, of course, and how I can't remember exactly how she said it to me. Basically, how much faith they have in God. Because if their faith is strong, then even the babies will fast. And so
Yes.
that day, after that day, every time moving forward, I would take my kids. I'm guilty, even though like, oh, I know I'm gonna be looked upon or shamed upon for going to my van. I would go to the van and take all the kids and hydrate and feed my kids
Mhm.
before
Yeah.
returning them.
They
But
used to
I would,
the wording they would use is
It's
so
according to your
infants.
faith.
Yes,
according to
there
your
It's
you
faith.
according to
go.
your faith.
Exactly. It's
According
according
to
to
your
Yeah.
faith,
Faith.
like it's optional according to your faith. So in
Yeah.
other words, it's really not optional because if you really want to be
If you
right
believe.
with God, you're
Hmm.
gonna make your kids fast,
Hmm.
right, right.
right?
Because
Because if they don't
I
fast, you're
my
spiritually condemning them. Their spirits are going to go
Yeah.
to hell. So do you love them?
yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. How much do you love your children?
But what's confusing is how they change things. So because
Yeah.
like when I first came in, I didn't let my first child fast, but up until one. But I remember when I had my fourth child, it was kind of like, do you have faith? But before he's one. Like I always I think so I know even at one that's not okay to let them fast, I'll be honest. But my personal rule was one because that's typically when the formula like that they're eating solid food. So my thought was why would you ever deprive a baby um of nutrients, so I guess maybe the way I was taught was solid food, and that's why I was always like 1 years old. But I definitely I was feeding them too, like you would um you go into the corner and you feed them a few crackers and you hope no other kids see. And that is it's it is so horrible that they create that environment where you feel you have to actually hide your kids eating. And that's where the faith thing comes in. And that's a scary thing when it comes to parents and their kids, because these parents, I can say me myself, I wanted my children to be gospel workers, so I wanted them to have great faith. That was the ideal thing for me. Never wanted them to be a football player. Now, of course, I'm like, hey, but in that environment, you're like, you practice on a Saturday. How could you ever? I mean, like your hope for your children is not there. So in an environment like that, when you're asking them to do something at such a young age, it's because you're thinking that you're preparing them like spiritually. And I think that's where we have to break down what is I don't know who's believers and who's not, but I think like the World Mission Society, Church of God, they depict this like Christian, like you're supposed to preach, you're supposed to do this with your children, you're supposed to be there every day, you're supposed to do this, like they have this category. And it's so difficult because when you're in that environment, you want to go to heaven. And so, um, your hope at that time is to teach him those things. But that is not God. Like they defined a Christian and characteristics that are not characteristics of God. And it's so scary. It's so scary because we as adults can take this, but what about as children? So as children, they're thinking they have to be this perfect being. This I can't miss a service. I'm supposed to preach to even my kids or to my classmates. I'm going to be persecuted. I might not even graduate from school. I'm not going to go to college. What are we setting up our children for? When you in the cold, that seems so amazing. But if you were to talk to a real world person, they'd be like, what are you thinking? And I think that's where we as members have to step back and go, okay, even if Father is coming this year, I still have to prepare for my children and their future. We can't just let this organization guide us on what is proper and and let our children miss out on these opportunities. You know, a couple things that I want to mention because we kind of like bypassed Odalis. Is that how I say it? Odalis?
It's Odalis, like Dallas
Odalis.
Cowboys. So, yeah.
Ooh, yes.
It's okay.
Odalis.
I like
Yes.
that. Odalis.
Yeah.
You mentioned about the schedule, but we didn't really talk about the schedule.
I think
At the
Milolo.
very Malolo. Okay, maybe it was Malolo.
Yeah, I didn't mention
Oh,
any.
okay. Mentioned about the schedule, but we didn't really talk
Yeah.
about like um the details. And I think that it would be kind of nice if we talked about the details of the schedule, like maybe like what is required and how intense it is for the children, and not just Sabbath days, but weekdays.
Yeah. Um, I'm gonna have to get going soon. And this way other people can talk because I gotta wake up really early for work. But two more things that maybe you guys can continue to talk about is also how the feast affect the children. Don't forget that they're also being woken up 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And this goes for teenagers as well. My teenagers would wake up with me. One who would always get sick, the older one would always get sick during feast times. Why? Because he's asthmatic and he's up at all times. So on top of waking up at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to get completely dressed, because you can't even go comfortably. You have to go completely suited up or completely dressed up, then to rush to school. So we were all sleep deprived. He would always get sick. And this is a teenager. So I can't even imagine how it must have been for you ladies with younger children there. I know as a teacher, it was rough in the mornings because I mean we weren't, and for the 5 a.m.s, all the parents with their babies and children would have to go to the fellowship, and it was always madness. Crying kids, because they're tired. But I can't imagine as a parent how that must feel to have to wake up your child, your baby or your 3-year-old, 6-year-old, even an 8-year-old. I mean, it's tough. So I just wanted to point out on that. But thank you for having me, Edgar, and thank you, ladies, for spending time. It was nice meeting you all. And yes, let's give it to Milolo. She hasn't spoken, and neither has Daisy. I'm gonna get going,
See you,
but it
Odalis.
Bye,
was nice.
Odalis.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye.
All right, you heard it from Odalis, Milolo, Daisy. What you got?
Well, for the
Okay.
fasting, my kids were
So
pretty good. Oh, hello. Do you want to talk first? You can go ahead.
you can go. My connection's acting up. I'm gonna give it a few minutes to, I guess. You can,
Yeah, for all of these, my son he was actually a pretty good kid, I guess you can call it. He was always awake during service. So for me, it was just like dress him up, like, just like he was small, so I used to just buy him those clothes that's like ready to go, like he looks like a suit. So I just scoop him like that. And it was just pretty much one day, like just TK. Pretty much he was in it. And I was more TK and kinder. He was getting tired for school. It was more very hard for him, but he was not a complainer. So for me, it was kind of good, I guess, in that kind of sense. Um, and when it came to fasting, I fasted my son since he was a baby. Both my daughter, I didn't the first year because like she was so underweight that I was like, one day it's gonna kill her. So I was like, no, no. But for my son, I fasted. Even like the day that we decided to leave from there, it was the unleavened bread. We were all fasting that day because I was like, just in case this is the true church, I'm gonna make sure that we're all fasting. So, I always fasted my kids for all the years that they were there since babies. And if I didn't fast the first year for my son, it might have been because of a sister probably told me not to. But, I was a very dedicated person that was like, nope, I have to because I want to make sure to go to heaven. I don't want to miss out, you know. So I was very, very indoctrinated, I guess, that's like, nope, church comes first. I don't care who's dying. If you're dying, we'll take you the way you are. You know what I mean? So it was very intense. Like I was very intense when it came to that. Even like when my babies was like, he was like 1, we were like in the house church, and then he started crying because he likes to be held. And at the end, he was holding him, and he put him down on and like he put him down. And he started crying because he wanted to be held. He started crying so much, he just like he turned blue. And then Deacon's like, "Oh, sister, your son, he's not breathing." And then I got so scared. And then like another brother came and he's like, "What's going on?" It's like he's not breathing. And he's like, "Just give him mouth to mouth." So I gave him to Deacon and he gave him like mouth to mouth. And he looked like he came back. And I got so scared. And like, we called like the urgent care to see what to do. And like they told me, you can come and take them too, so like the doctor can check them. But I was so scared to go because I want to miss service. It was like a Sabbath. So I was like, I can't miss service. Like if I leave, it's like 30 minutes away. I'm like, I'm not gonna make it back for service. I'm gonna miss second service. I can't miss second service. So I was like so paranoid because I was like, I can't go to the doctor. And the deacon's wife, he's like, no, no, I'll go with you. I'll go with you. Let's go. And I got scared too for her because I was like, if she goes, we're both gonna miss service, and then we're both doomed, right? I was thinking we're dying, we're gonna die for, and she's gonna, and I'm bringing her down because they tell you like, don't bring other sisters down with you, right? You know, um, so it was like very, but she convinced me. She's like, no, let's go. I'll go with you. I will go with you. And we did. We ended up going to the doctor. It was like it's called like a holding breath spell. But the moment there, like that he wasn't breathing, I was thinking in my head, like he can't die because like we're in Zion, right? In Zion, you don't die. So that's like I guess like the only thing that came to my mind, like, oh yeah, he can't die, he can, and everybody was like in shock there, I guess. You know, at the house church, we're just a few, brothers and sisters, but we're also shocked. But that's the only thing that crosses my mind. It's like you're in Zion, nothing could happen to you. You're in Zion, they teach you, that you should be protected, that nothing, as long as you're in here, you're protected. You know what I mean? Like you go out of the Zion, then yeah, okay, well, who knows what's gonna happen to you? But as long as you're here, you're protected by father and mother. So in my head it's like, my son can't die because we're here. Like, why is he not breathing, right? So it's like, and the scaredness and like the fear. You know what I mean? I'm happy like the sister convinced me to go. Um, but I wouldn't have went because like they teach you like don't go, like don't leave Zion, like don't leave no matter what's going on. So in my head is like I can't leave. I'm scared to leave. You know what I mean? So like I was blessed, I guess, to have like a house church like they're very like that sister was very convincing to just take me and always like telling me don't do that or like don't be too hard on him. She was always very like the kind one. You know what I mean? But for me, it's like no, no, no. Like we have to do this and perfect everything because we want to make sure that we go to heaven. You know what I mean? Don't make one bad mistake. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's like the way they teach you. They teach you very stay there. So yeah, it was very, very hard, but I was very, indoctrinated. I was very intense in Zion. And I would judge too. If you don't come or your child is not fasting, it's like, oh wow, I guess that sister doesn't have like really strong faith. Um, that's why she's not fasting. That's why her child's not fasting. You know what I mean? Like my child's fasting like since a baby because we have very strong faith. So that was like my excuse. And, I was just very good at telling people, like, I guess thinking in my head of like, if that person's not going to heaven, they're not doing what father and mother tells us to do, which is fast and, keep all the services and keep your kid awake. You know what I mean? I make sure my son was reading by 4 and reading the new song, making sure that he was singing during service. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't care if all the kids are doing, not doing it. You make sure you're doing it. And I was very intense. So for me, it was very, but I was very, I guess, good to have like a house church in begin. When my kids were born because they were very close and they were very loving people. They actually always took care of my son, and even like in the beginning when I had like postpartum depression, that sister used to carry my son and cook while she's holding my son, and doing all the things from Zion. You know what I mean? So yeah, like for me, I was very lucky. I had no complaints when it came to like my treatment for my kids. Like at least in that house church, like afterwards you can see it in big churches. It become more intense when it comes to like trials. For my daughter, like she has milk allergy, and I guess they forgot to ask me about my daughter having mac and cheese, and I was like, "Oh, sorry, sister." I was like, she's doing okay. Just a little bit allergies. I was like, I tell you guys, like, please, like, she has allergies. So, they're supposed to tell you that this kind of things. Like, my daughter's not intense when it comes to like dying if she gets milk, milk allergy, like dairy in her system. But imagine if she did and they couldn't find me. You know what I mean? They were looking like, oh, sister, we're looking for you. I just wanted to tell you that a sister accidentally gave Eric, my daughter, mac and cheese. And I was like, oh, it's okay. Like, obviously we have to forgive the sisters no matter what they do, right? But like inside, it's like you think about it, it's like, it's it can be it's dangerous. Like if someone has allergies, like come on, like you guys have to be more careful. And I always try my best to always know everything, like what they're giving the kids, if I have to bring my own food. I'm always like very cautious for someone to just come and just give my daughter, you know, food that contains milk. I was like, okay. So when it comes to like bigger churches, it's so much, it's very intense. It's just too much. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Milolo, we really want to get to the part where you break down the children's schedule, because that's also something so grueling that the kids have to go through. So go ahead, take it away.
Yeah, sure. So, before I get into that, I kind of just want to like explain a little bit about the experience that I had with the kids' room, because I know in like certain locations it was very intense, but the second Zion location that I was in is still a pretty newer location. And a lot of the members that were transferred there have been in the church for a long time. And even though we didn't like outwardly say it, you can kind of feel in the air that we were all just tired of doing the gospel 24/7. And we kind of wanted a little bit of a break. And so I think the leaders felt that. And because we weren't really coming during the week or, on Sundays, like compared to other churches, they were a lot more lenient with us. So it wasn't super strict. And even with the kids' room, the moms were actually allowed to be there and they were encouraged. They were, no, I don't want to make the church look like they were a great church because they're not, obviously, but the moms were allowed to be in the kids' room. They were also, encouraged to be with a teacher that doesn't have a child. And so they can like, kind of monitor. So they were very much heavily involved in taking care of their kids on the Sabbath, but they kind of just did like a rotation. Um, so I just wanted to mention that because I know every Zion location is different. My location was a lot more lenient compared to other locations. So from what I remember, when it comes to the schedule, we had to get there like maybe about 30 minutes before we started singing. And so, right when they started singing, everything was prepared and ready to go. And then the moms would come in and drop their kids off. And then we would have service. Right after service, in my location, we would give them a snack and probably have like 5 minutes to just, relax or whatever. And then after that, we would get into, I don't remember the name of like the books, but the church produced like children's books and they have different stories. And so we would go over those stories and, go over them with the kids. And then after that, we would, depending on if it was a long Sabbath day due to like having service like at 9 or 9, 3, and 8, or 10, 2:30, and 7:30, the kids would take a nap. And that nap would be anywhere from like an hour to maybe an hour and 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours. And then after that, then it'd be service time. So then we'd get them up and we'd wake them up, and maybe about 15 minutes before service started, we'd wake them up and get them ready for service. And then after that afternoon service, right after afternoon service, we would take them outside and, give them a chance to run around and play. And then after that, we would come back inside and there would be another activity. So just like how the gospel workers had a very hectic schedule of like, at this time we're doing this, at this time we're doing that, the kids' room also had a hectic schedule too, where like literally every hour, every other hour, there was something for them to do. There wasn't really a time for them to just sit there, lay, and rest. Like they always had to be on schedule. And if we were not following the schedule, the kids' room teachers would get rebuked for that. Like they have to follow schedule, they have to follow the plan, they have to do the I Like God books. If not, we would get in trouble. So that's pretty much how a typical Sabbath day went in the location that I was in.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Um, I think that Jenny mentioned about the park. I can't remember if it was Jenny or Daisy, but I wrote it down about like no park in another location.
Or Dally's.
Um, okay. Um, you mentioned that like you would take the kids out to the park, like, you know, I would assume like probably like before service or after service, they had a park time, you know. My question is, was there ever a time when their park privileges were taken away, like
Yeah,
the children?
yeah. So, if the kids weren't behaving, if they weren't following the teachers, then they wouldn't be allowed to go outside. Or, um, if there was a specific child that wasn't behaving, then everyone else would be allowed to go outside, but that child would have to stay inside. And sometimes, they would even have um, the child sit in the seat and face the wall in a room.
Hmm.
They would have, like, I remember there's one specific child that was very, he was a little bit of a troublemaker, but at the end of the day, they're kids. And so he would be placed in the office with the deaconess, and he would have to sit in the high chair facing the wall while the deaconess is, doing admin work or whatever. And that would be his punishment while everyone else is enjoying like the nice weather, going for a walk or whatever. So yeah.
So wild to me. It's like a prison.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I asked was because we did the same in Colorado Springs, but when I really, really noticed it is when we got to Arizona, they had a huge playground, but the kids were not allowed to play on it. And I just was like, it was such a red flag then. Like, why are they not allowed to go outside and play? Like not even like it wasn't a part of the schedule for any children at all at that point. And so by the overseer, and I don't remember the overseer's name in Arizona, but um I felt like that was something that really upset me because I feel like you're taking away the children's humanity. Like, they you expect the children to be 100% like a typical child in a school, like they have recess. That's normal, and there's a reason for that. Um, So if you are going to implement a school or a schedule with kids that you are requiring them to be there 12 hours a day, but you're not um, thinking about their physical well-being, because the physical well-being definitely has to do with their mental health. And then you're taking it from them, it's a big, huge impact. And I think that is horrible. I think that them just little thing like just taking a park away or those kinds of things, even like free time. I think that's really intense. Um, um, did you guys on the East Coast have the teens watching the kids too? Did you
So
guys?
from my experience and like the location that I was in, we didn't have any teens watching the kids. But if there was if there was a teacher that needed to be in a really important meeting or education, it may happen like once or twice, but it wasn't like a regular thing.
Hmm, I'm
Mhm.
wondering if that's more of a house church thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think back in
Mhm.
the day, that's how it was because it was like all like you're so small, it's house church, all the adults, all the young adults have to be used for the gospel work. So who's there to watch the kids? These darn kids,
Mhm.
it's like the teenagers. And then even later on in Cheyenne, it was switched to be the mothers rotating like other Zions.
Yeah, because it moved from a a house church to a building as well. Mhm.
To deprive a kid of going out to play after you spent the entire day indoctrinating him. I mean, that's what they do. Let's keep it real. I mean, what are they learning in there? If not the I Like God books, so they're giving your child a lens, right, through which not only to view the Bible, but how to live their life. This is why the children, even when they grow up, there's lasting effects that come with being in this type of environments because of what they're learning in that place. And it's hard. It sucks. It sucks for a child you to be cooped up in there. You know what I mean, all day. And what did Jenny say for not eating? Right? What was a Brussels sprout that was left? What are they trying to do to your children? This is tactics that they're learning this. People, this is how cults operate. This is how cults operate. They're breaking even the children down so that they can build them back up with their ideology, with their way of how you need to act, what you need to do, a robot. There's a reason why they pay attention more to you as you're becoming a young adult. Why? Because they're viewing you now as, oh, this person, now he's beneficial to me. Before, it's just a nuisance, it's an obstacle, it's a cone. But now that they can preach, now that they've been broken up and built up and they're at that age, now it's time to use them like we use the parents. That's what happens in places like this.
I do have another thing that I want to mention. I feel like the baby's room and even like the older kids' room too, I feel like they weren't getting the proper nutrients. And, I feel like parents were kind of just putting anything together and giving it to them for lunch. There was one mom I know that would really take the time to prepare nutritious meals for her daughter, but everyone else, I kind of feel like they were just, giving them whatever kind of food, just packaged food. And not to say that packaged food is bad, but, I saw, a continuous cycle of certain foods. And to me, I'm thinking to myself, like, I understand you may not have enough time to, make, certain meals, healthier meals every week, but, you know, the kids' nutrition growing up, it's very important. It's very important that they eat, food that's going to help them, that's going to sustain them. And I feel like a lot of the kids, babies too, were just eating like crap, but like their moms are doing so much gospel work and are in Zion until 1 o'clock in the morning that they don't even really have the time to make healthier meals for their kids. And so that's something that I noticed and that it really used to make me feel bad.
Can I mention
Well,
something too on that?
yeah.
Or go ahead, Jenny.
Oh, so I just never heard that before. I think, well, in Cheyenne, Wyoming, the children ate what the adults ate as well. So we never prepared meals separate, or different age groups weren't fed unless it was fed or from their parents. Everything, all of us were fed the same thing.
So for the teenagers, in the location that I was in, they ate the same food as the adults. But the babies' room, the moms had to prepare food for their toddlers and whatnot.
Yeah, our location, adults and then kids separate. Kids separate. So like for example, if there was a meal that the adult we knew the kids would not eat, we would make a separate meal. We had a lot of kids, like 40 kids, so babies and that. So yeah, there was separate like countings to where we were.
I want to
Mhm.
like when I think about that, like about the moms, right? They probably don't have enough time to make a nutritious meal for their kids when probably normally they'd want to.
Mhm.
But Milolo, when you mentioned like the Sabbath day schedule being so hectic and being like from 8:30 to 10 o'clock at night, you people watching this may think, well, that's one day. Yes, it's hectic, but it's doable for one day. When normal churches don't even do that to people, right? It's like not a 12-hour day. But then you add on in this place, there's not just Sabbath day, there's Tuesday night service. So you need to hurry and get off work, and the kids get off school and prepare dinner and get to be. Zion is that night. And then there's Friday nights. You need to take time to have preparation day, which is where you go to the church and you clean and prepare the church to be clean for it to be used all Saturday long. So you bring your kids there and you and your kids are cleaning the church Friday night. So that's already Saturdays, Tuesday night, Friday night. But if you're a gospel worker, you're there almost every night anyway. Don't you feel guilty anyway? There's going to be Monday night preaching or Wednesday night Elohim Academy. Thursday night can be an education, EduLMS video. And then Sundays are the day you can actually go preaching as a church and actually preach together. So really, the kids, if your child is of a gospel working parent, they're in that place all the time. They're in there almost every evening till late, and they're there all day Saturday. They're there all day Sunday. That's their whole life. They're just there all the time. And I know that because I lived it. Things did advance and change and adapt later when I got older and finally left. Things did start to change. For example, I had a gospel working friend who finally said Sundays are family days. Look, EduLMS finally came out with a video where head office says Sundays can be for your family. I wonder why they said that, right? Because we're already there all day Saturday. How dare you say we have to be all there all day there Sunday, which we were. That's how it always had been. Then all of a sudden, head office comes up with a video where Sundays are for family. But even then, like in each everyone's church, it's like, oh, you're not coming to the preaching meeting Sunday? No, I'm spending time with my family. And for those who can stick up for themselves and have a day for family on Sunday, good for you, because that's how it should be. But for the longest time, it wasn't that way. It's you're there all the time. Your kid is there all the time. And then through that, it's almost like, where's your relationship and time with your kid? When do you ever get to just hang out with your kid? And when you do get to take your child or your children to the movies or do something as a family, it's like a sin. It's it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's intense.
They literally raise your children for you. And that just brought up a memory in my mind as well about my son, where, like Marissa was saying, if you didn't go through that, good for you. But that's definitely not the norm. When I lived in the church, not only the Saturday, the kid has something to do. My son had something to do. Tuesday, he had something to do. When I was there the other days, he had nothing to do. He couldn't go outside and play. He was too little. Me and my wife were busy doing the gospel work. I remember him just sitting. That's what he did, sitting at a table in the multi-purpose room. Multiple hundreds of times I remember seeing that. The kids are treated like they're just nothing, like they're just a cone in the road. It sucks. And you know, earlier I said something to the World Mission Society about changing that. I want to say one more thing. If you want to change anything, let the parents be parents. you're
Thank
you're
you.
you're not parents. Your parents, they suck. I'm sorry. Your heavenly parents, they suck. They don't know how to parent anybody. Let parents be parents. Let them raise their kids. Because yes, they did take a lot of years of my time from my son, my relationship between me and my son. He grew up almost without his dad, really, honestly.
You stole the words out of my mouth. I wanted to be sure to say that too, Edgar. Let
Hmm.
let the parents parent their kids and stop parenting other people's kids. Stop getting in their face. Stop putting them in closets. Stop doing stuff. Everybody just stop. And let's just parent our own kids as it should be. Then there won't be these horrific stories we have to tell or have been through. And the whole point of us sharing our story is because God forbid this continues to happen to parents and children and teenagers and everybody who is a member there.
Can I say something though? The doctrine, I feel like, doesn't allow it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as much as we can say, I feel like if the church does change this and lets the parents, it would only be who are coming in now. But those who eventually become gospel workers, I feel like this is what kind of sucks is I feel like the church has so many rules, right? There's like levels to it. So as you become a leader, you start to hear like more rules or more how you can have good faith,
Regulate.
right? But when I left, I realized that those who had greater faith, it was because they ignored the red flags of the people who were telling who were who were going against the organization. So it so um even though we hope that the organization is going to do this, which could prolong the organization like more like a Mormon or Jehovah's Witness kind of organization, right? Where they include like a family, I believe. But instead this organization it doesn't allow that. It doesn't the doctrine itself doesn't allow that. So even though the newer members may be gaslit to think that this is something that is not normal, the older members are always going to hold on to, I have greater faith. I know what to do. And eventually, as the newer members grow or become more indoctrinated, they're going to think that they have some special truth by understanding what these members of a long time have gone through and that they're overcoming to, sorry to use so many culty words. But you know, from their perspective, it's like that's what they're thinking. You know, that's the indoctrination. But in reality, it's really the fact that the church has had an opportunity, the amount of time to be able to cover up. I want to say that Jehovah's Witnesses and other organizations, not to like compare, or, you know, hopefully not bring too many of them into this chat, but I feel like they're not as proactive. I want to say the World Mission Society Church of God, they're going to watch this video the day it premieres, and there's going to be some kind of reaction from it. And so we all know that. And so because we know that, it in a way it kind of sucks because we feel like they're covering and they're not fixing. They're not fixing. There are still or leaders, they still believe this. They're just making it seem like, oh, let's make this easier for a new member. And then that's just one more step a new member has to go through. And I think like kind of like what Jenny was explaining is like um I think I don't know if she wants to get into it, but like just in regards to like how our children are um it's there's a situation between, okay, so let me just kind of like progress why I got to this is because although the leaders in this organization make say they don't do this, I think that they still will. And the reason I'm mentioning about Jenny and maybe what she had mentioned before, I don't, but is that um, we as parents, there is the organization doesn't want us to be parents. They want to separate us from our children. And they do that from the beginning. From the moment you walk into this organization, they're telling you, um, you as an adult, they're not talking about your children, they're talking about you as an adult. You have to focus on your faith. You have to think about how you can save your children. But then once they separate you, they make you feel comfortable where you feel that way. They are not just treating you as an adult with these fear and indoctrination tactics, but they're doing the same thing for our children. And um, I myself, I myself was triggered today, actually, craziest thing. My child didn't want to go to school today. My 5-year-old, he's in kindergarten and just started, and the administrative office had to help him go to school. And he was crying and kind of like, like it was a lot for him. And I was so triggered because there were so many times that I remember my children being crying and the deaconess just being like, it's okay. And it wasn't. It was not okay. So today it was a little hard because the school, it's okay, but when it's like you know that this organization, when they're taking your children, they're separating you, you tell yourself it's for your salvation. But um it's 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 not. It's they're really an evil place, and what they're doing to these children, um and what they tell to these children and how they diminish these children's ego and respect for themselves and boundaries is absolutely not okay. And I think that um no, I'm not the only one. We're not the only ones. So yeah, I'm sorry. A little bit.
No need to be sorry. It truly is. It's all about, this is about the children. And hopefully there is more adaptation, but moreover awakening. Awakening that this is not the truth. That you do not belong to the true truth. You like how they made us feel so special and excuse me, I go way left field, but focusing on the children and the abuse that they go through and will continue to go through. But hopefully, like Edgar had expressed before, like this is awareness for those who are still in or maybe coming in. Like it's how can we make it safe? Like we want all the children to be safe and balance. And there's no balance when you get inside into an organization deep like this, into a cult, shall we say, deep like this. Yeah. It's all about like protecting the children and thank you for having this channel again and allowing us to share our stories, Edgar. That's truly valuable to me. Mhm.
Yeah, no, this is for the kids, and it takes everybody to, their strength in numbers. So we're all doing this for the same reasons, and I thank you guys for coming on. That being said, Jenny, I don't know if you want to touch on. I know you had some stuff that you wanted to share. I don't know if you want to share that or.
Um, yeah, I think this goes along with safety and protection of children, not only mentally, but also, in all factors. The last topic I would like to share because a young lady has asked me to share, and it's going to be the hardest, really hardest topic for me to share, but pedo, um, just I'm gonna rewind to recapping to thankfully I never allowed my home to be open to multiple men. I was asked 3 different times, could brothers move in because I did have a full basement. And I'll never forget like the third time with Deacon Isaac just being infuriated. Like, I have children in my home. Like, I am not moving anybody into my home, brothers, other families into my home. Like, the safety of your children is so important. And I uh I know that there was one home particularly that was opened up to multiple men, brothers that had lived in there, multiple families that came and went in and out of that home. And reflecting back, I didn't realize like um excuse me at the time, but I I I do want to share because I was asked to share this from uh an individual who is now an adult, that this quote from her goes out to and for her and to anyone who is still in the Cheyenne, Wyoming Zion. That current member, George Hollingsworth, is a pedo, and I wish I could get back the naked pictures that he sent me. I think it's important to bring up the fact that not only was there this situation, but also that when Deacon Isaac was here, he was also expressed that another situation that had occurred, and a brother had past the boundary line to grape, and still allowed the member to reside inside of God's place. God would not allow that. God would not allow somebody to still reside in their home if this was the truth and that happened. You're not in the true church of God. I'm sorry.
Take a minute there, Jenny. I just, I want members that are watching this to know that it's not easy for the members to talk about stuff like this. But if they're talking about this, it's for a reason, and it's so that it doesn't happen to your children. Think about it as parents. If you want your children at risk for things like that, if she's God, if she's all knowing, why wouldn't she stop things like that from happening? Why doesn't she stop all the things that at least for the children, right?
I
She said,
think,
"Go ahead,
go
Marissa."
ahead. No, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, if this is God, this is not a God worth following. But that's all I was gonna say.
I just, I want to point out that this place, like, cultivates this kind of environment because I lived in that shared home that she was mentioning. That was a big thing, is people being packed into one home to do the gospel work. And things like this happen. And not to mention that we are separate from our kids. We let everything go into father and mother's hands. And we don't protect our kids as they should be because of this situation, like that kind of indoctrination. Like, people should not be asked for grown men to live in your home. People shouldn't be asked to move out of all their places and have a shared home. These are not normal things. And I think all the different factors, because people can say, oh, things like this happen in life. Yeah, but when you add A, B, C, D, all these different factors and put it in one place, all the indoctrination, all the separation, it breeds these kind of actions. It breeds, and then it's just multiple factors, multiple layers that breed these kind of sick situations. And it's very sad. These are things that people have to live with for the rest of their life in in the name of God. And what's really messed up is people think these things happen. People in the World Mission Society Church of God think these things happen, but that everything is being done for true God. What's frustrating is we've let them take control of our kids. We've let all these things happen for two Korean human beings. We didn't know. We thought they were true God. But at the end of the day, to really realize that all the crap that we've been through is for it not to be the truth is that's hard.
It's disgusting and it's the most devastating thing ever. When I left, that's what made me be ready, to be honest. When you realize, for those of us who have actually been through something, so many members can say and try to gaslight and maybe pretend like they haven't, but we were there too, But when you leave and you realize it's a scam and this place is literally that disgusting and you allowed it, it's heartbreaking. It's disgusting. It's heartbreaking. There's there is no excuse for the church to allow a member to do that to a child and cover it. And I can say we were also supposed to be sent a member to live with us, and we have children. And it wasn't until he never came, he never moved in, but it wasn't until later that I found out that he also has um child abuse situations, and we have children, and the church set that up. So I personally can understand that it's not on her behalf. We come into this organization, and I can say I wholeheartedly trusted them. I told them everything. I regret it, but we trust them so much. I talk to them more than I talk to my husband, my family. They were the one, like everything. Then if they're the one that is telling us, then we trust, there's a relationship that you trust. So I want to make it clear that on behalf of myself, and I don't know, but probably those on this interview, is it wasn't us that broke the trust. It was never us that broke the trust. But we were able to see how the trust was already broken, and you guys lied to us from the beginning. It was not us. I can say 100% I am not the most righteous person. I made 100 mistakes. I messaged members after I left. I'm sorry for what I did. I'm sorry I didn't try hard enough. But I can wholeheartedly say that it was because of the environment that was created by them. So for an environment to do that to an individual and to put children at danger, something they have to live with for the rest of their freaking life, is uncalled for.
And
We're only on episode 2.
and I just I want to say one thing real quick. World Mission Society, how will you try to play this off? How will you try to write this off? How will you try to brush this under the rug? How are you going to do it? Are you going to call everyone a liar? If we're lying, right? The receipts are there. You would be doing something about it. The problem is more and more people are coming out, so it doesn't matter one way or another. These stories are going to get out. More and more stories are going to get out. This is what happens in places like this. This is not made up. This is not for you to get bad publicity. If anything, we're doing this so if the kids that are in there, if the parents decide to stay, at least they won't go through what some of the members went through. They won't go through what we went through. That's what we're doing it for. Create a better place, a better environment. Let the parents be parents. You guys are not good parents. You guys don't give good advice. Don't put the children in harm's way. Even the members that don't have children, so I feel like sometimes the members don't have children, they might think this is irrelevant. This kind of stuff cannot happen, right? There's no way that this kind of stuff happens, because if we said this happened at the Roman Catholic Church, the World Mission Society would be smacking their teeth right now. They love this. They expect this kind of stuff, right? But they don't expect this kind of stuff in the World Mission Society because it's supposedly run by God. My question is, if it's run by God, then how does God allow things while God is on earth? Well, how does God allow those kind of things? Does God not care about them? This is not this is weird. This is criminal activity that's going on. And these stories need to be told. This is not for cloud. I don't care about my channel. I care about the people inside the World Mission Society Church of God. That's what it started. This is what it's all about. That's what it will continue to be. And you guys need to do better as a church. I mean, from the leadership, you guys need to take accountability for what you did. All the people that you've made suffer, my son included, my son, everyone on this panel, all the ex-members. We're not just on here just talking just to talk. We got better stuff to do with our life. I don't want to do this. But I'm doing this for the people that are still in there. I'm doing this because I know as soon as this video premieres, you guys are going to do your best to say that we're lying, that we're doing this for the wrong reasons. That's what really pisses me off. I know what you guys are going to do. But you can call 1, 2, 3 people crazy. But when it's happening all over the world, yeah, you can't. You have to deal with this. So deal with it. Deal
Yeah.
with it.
And you want us to quietly leave? Well, we still have family members in there and friends and people we actually love and care about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, we care about everyone who goes in there, but it's personal. We could leave quietly, but for me, it's personal. I have people
It's
who I
personal.
know and love, and they're there, and
Mm-hmm.
they're stuck in there. They're not stuck in there because they think God is on the earth, and they have to put up with all these different things because true God is on the earth. So it's very bothering. And like Edgar said, change, do better,
That's all we're
and that's why
asking
we're
for.
speaking out.
I also wanted to mention too, like, for any members that are watching this or that will watch this, don't just look at this like, oh, these things just happen to them. It's only if, that's their situation, that's their story. That doesn't mean that the church is bad. But you don't have the right to dismiss someone else's experience. Just because you may have had a good experience in the church doesn't mean that someone else is also going to have the same experience. And like it was mentioned earlier, it's not normal for a child to be afraid that they're not going to make it to heaven. It's not normal for a 9-year-old child to feel that way. It's not normal. And also, like Edgar mentioned, like if this was the Roman Catholic Church, you guys love to talk about them and make them look like they're so evil. But look at what's going on within your organization. So really think about it and make sure, like, as you continue on, really think, do you want to continue to be in an organization where they cover things up like this? and where they sweep it under the rug and act like it's not a big deal, and where they hide these types of things from their members. Do you really want to continue in an organization that operates this way? Um, and so yeah, that's all that I have to say about that.
Before a cult like the WMS can judge anyone, they need to look in the mirror deeply. Look, they claim to be a Bible believing church, and they only have the perfect truth. They only rely on the words of God. Jesus says, before you can judge a brother, make sure you take the plank out of your own eye. When's the last time you did that? They do that to every single church out there. When's the last time? You know why you can't do it? Because they put so much fear in you, you can't even try to figure out if these things are going on without being scared for your life, without being scared of the salvation of your children, for even second guessing a leader. If a leader tells you it's a lie, that's it. That's where the conversation ends. I guess I have to throw everything out the window. If they said it's a lie, it's a lie. I would say that's toxic. I would say that's dangerous. I would say that's a huge red flag. And I think you guys owe it to your children, to yourselves, even to the members that don't have children. Think about yourself, right? How you feel in the cult. Think about this. Every member in the cult has to have parents, right? What did you tell your parents when you joined the cult? Were you honest with them? Did you tell them what you joined and what you believed? Or did you have to lie to your mom and dad because you knew that if you told them the truth about what happens in this place, they would tell you to get out of there, to run? Did you lie to your parents? Did your relationship with your parents get better, or did it strain if they didn't accept the church's teaching? Do you feel separated now that you've been years in, months in, days in? Do you feel separated from your family, from your loved ones? Even if you have a significant other that's not a believer, do you feel like there's distance in between that relationship since you joined the cult? Now ask yourself, if you had children, if you answered yes to any of those things, would you want to feel that from your children? This is why we do this, because of that, because of what they're doing, what they're denying, but they can't deny this. So it's just gonna come down on you guys as an avalanche as time goes by. So you guys need to address it and fix it now, because we ain't slowing down. Y'all better take me off of YouTube, because I ain't shutting up.
Yeah. I think we said this during Marissa's interview. I said, I think we had discussed this about there's no point for us as normal people to make a YouTube video about something, like the church tries to make it seem like, we have nothing else to do. We have plenty of other things to do. But I think there was one thing that we learned in the church in the study: be baptized immediately. And there was an example that I used to use all the time. And to be honest, it never really, really hit my heart until I left the church. And it was about the building on fire. How, if there's a way to say and be baptized immediately, like something like how urgent it is. If there was a building on fire, wouldn't you want to let somebody know that the building was on fire? Um, but it was always in reference to like false churches. But I never wanted to admit that the World Mission Society Church of God was a part of that. And I want to say that the devil, or whatever you believe in, they're going to use that they're going to know what is going to work. And I want to say that us who have left the World Mission Society Church of God, we realized the building was on fire. We left the building and we're screaming to the people on the 13th floor, the building is on fire. But the people who are at the top are saying they're sending an announcement. It's not on fire. Don't listen to those people outside. That's what's happening. The World Mission Society Church of God is not okay. It is on fire. It is not the place to be. There are evil things happening there. It is not safe. And for us that have left and realized that, we're warning you guys. We're literally from our heart. This is not something we can have so much better things to do. This is from our heart. We cared about those when we were in there, and when we left, we didn't change. This is who we genuinely are. We literally care about people. So our efforts are to tell you guys this building is on fire. The World Mission Society Church of God, please leave. And if you don't want to see it's on fire, then take the smoke. We don't want you to, but then, like, what can you do?
It's tough.
But why we make the kids episode is because they're those parents that are keeping their kids in the fire for no freaking reason. Because they're gonna leave. I know I mentioned this in the last episode. I never saw so many kids leave their families, leave their parents than when I was in this church. Me personally. So please, please take the warning. Please take the warning. Don't like, if you don't, then you'll be with us. And we don't want that. That's all. That's all. So.
And anyone else got anything to add? No, I think I think that this honestly, to me, what does the community think? What do the viewers think? You guys want to see this turn into like a Rocky, Rocky type thing? We can go Rocky 1, Rocky 2, Rocky 3, all the way to Rocky 100. I feel like we could talk about the kids room endlessly. Um, and I just want to say, again, we're doing this for the people that are still in there, that are still lost in the sauce. They're with their children. Just think about it. I mean, when's the last time you visited your parents and actually really wanted to spend genuine time with them? We're not doing this for show. We're doing this so that you guys don't lose out on what we lost out on. This is about family in general, right? I literally remember talking to my mom just yesterday when I took her to the doctor, which, by the way, I couldn't have dreamed of doing when I was in the cult. I took her to the doctor yesterday. On our way there, we're talking, and she says, she's telling me about this job she had. And I'm like, when did you have that job? I don't remember you having that job. She's explaining everything to me. And I'm like, wow, that was during the year of Jubilee. I didn't even know anything about where my mom was working, anything about what was going on. She starts telling me about some health issues, everything going on. And I'm just thinking, like, this is what I mean. They don't physically, literally tell you, don't spend time with your family, but it's what they don't say. It's by them continuously tell, oh, no, we don't tell you to not go spend time with your family. All we're telling you is spend all your time in here. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yep.
So I just want to say to those who are watching, I hope you found this content beneficial. If you want to see more content like this, I think that the red flag episodes are getting a lot of attention. So if you want to have a specific red flag talked about, put it in the comments, DM me, anything that you guys want to talk about. Ultimately, this is for the channel for ex-members, and even current members. And just a side note for the World Mission Society Church of God, I know you guys are watching. I know General Pastor's coming to the United States because of all the stuff that's going on. I know he's paying attention to all these things. I know he's trying to do damage control. And just like you guys think that you guys have the upper hand, that you guys know what's going on, we got people too. We know what's going on with you guys as well. We know you're falling apart. We know this isn't just in the United States. Tell me I'm lying. I got receipts. So you guys better worry. You guys better address what we're talking about, because we're not stopping. And there's more people that are coming out and they want to talk, because you guys brought this upon yourself by telling the people of the church, we left because of this. We left because we were Satan. We left because whatever. Now we're telling you. Now you got us out here speaking our truth, telling you how it really happened. Okay. So until you address it, we're going to keep doing this. Okay. That being said, I hope everybody enjoyed this episode of Diffusing the WMSCOG.